Ready to revolutionize how you network? Introducing the LynkMe Smart Card, the business card for the digital age. Simply tap it to a phone and instantly share your profile. Your new contacts sync directly to your CRM, making networking seamless and efficient. Customize your smart card to reflect your brand, ensuring every connection you make is memorable and impactful. Plus, our cards are durable, reusable, and eco-friendly, rendering the mass printing of old-school business cards obsolete. Instant impressions, lasting connections. Step up your networking game with LynkMe Smart Card. It's not just a card, it's a smarter way to connect.
And the LynkMe Smart Card is, in fact, going to be the topic of this episode of the Apptrepreneur Show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Apptrepreneur Show. This is the podcast where we talk about technology, apps, and life in between. I'm Kevin, the Apptrepreneur, your host, and it's been a while since we've done one of these episodes, but I want to do a little bit more. I want to start getting into the podcasting thing a little bit more for the Apptrepreneur channel. For those of you who are watching live, you'll notice there's some visual glitches. We must be in the Matrix or something. Sorry about that, but we're going to have a good conversation. So for those of you who saw that preview, what is that? That is called a LynkMe card. And a LynkMe card, which had I been better prepared, I would have had it with me because I have one, is a special card that is the business card of the future. Instead of printing out all these paper cards and handing them out, you have one physical card. You can tap the phone, as you saw. You can scan the code. You can put all your information on it. And I decided I wanted to talk to the founder and, I sense, de facto creator of the LynkMe card, Woo Kim. Thank you for joining us, Woo.
What's happening, everybody? Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
So for the record, and I should make this clear to everyone, you did provide me with a LynkMe card. Although you're not buying my endorsement, these opinions are my own. And I have to say, I really do like the LynkMe card. I like how it has like my little iCritic logo on it. I like how people can just scan it and they can have all the information, everything. So I guess the first logical question would be, what made you come up with this idea for the LynkMe card?
Good question. So for those of you that don't know, I graduated from Cal State Fullerton last year, and LynkMe was my senior design project. As an electrical engineering major, I had to do a senior design project on my senior year, and I was going to these job conventions and conferences to land a job. And what ended up happening was I had to print out this thick resume, like 10, 15 things of resumes to bring it to the potential employers. And I remember thinking to myself, well, can I put this digitally into something so that I don't have to carry a stack of resume? And that was how LynkMe was born. And I, try to put my information, my contact details, any type of PDFs that I had on a single card. That way I don't have to physically bring, papers everywhere that I went. And yeah, that's how it got started.
Neat. So did you get an A on that project?
I sure did. I think I got a perfect score in that project.
That is awesome. So, all right. So you create this project, you get an A for the project, and then the next question is, well, what do you do now with it? And here on the Apptrepreneur Show, we have talked to entrepreneurs of various different industries, the gig economy, the publishing. And the thing that is always interesting about entrepreneurs is people always like to say, oh yeah, I can be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss. But most people don't know the discipline or the steps it takes to be your own boss. Can you kind of explain what some of the launching your own business and being your own boss looked like? And how scary was it?
I love the fact that you added how scary was it, because it was exactly that. When I first got started, I didn't know anything about anything, right? I didn't know what sales was. I had no experience in marketing. So it honestly felt like I had this thing that I developed and I wanted to get it in front of as many people as possible, but how? Right? And so a lot of the times, I would say like 90% of my time was spent door knocking in the beginning, because that's the only thing that I could think of to let other people know my stuff. And that was tough. It's not easy to, door knock and talk to strangers. But I want to say, like, to answer to your question, I want to say entrepreneurship, it's just doing a lot of tough things that people are not accustomed to doing, but it is very rewarding once you start doing that consistently.
Okay, and it's a little bit more than just late nights and noodles, right?
It's the late nights, early mornings. You definitely need your coffee at all times. I want to say.
That's awesome. So definitely. So how big is the company now? Are you getting a good little foothold with your LynkMe cards? I know that, without saying too much, one of the reasons you came on my radar is because I found out you had partnered with companies like Realty World for like real estate agents, which that was like a brilliant use of a card like this because it allowed real estate agents to put their whole profile on one space with their contact information. But what are some other companies that you have found, like some other professions that have really gotten good use out of the LynkMe card?
I'll answer that question in two part. The first part is when I first made these cards, I made it for myself because I didn't want to carry paper. But then I thought to myself, hey, how could I sell this? Like, who needs these cards? Who can use these? And the answer to that was people that probably network a lot. And I thought sales professionals network all the time, real estate agents network all the time. And so that's kind of how I pivoted my, like, I want to say ideal customer into real estate, into being real estate agents. And from there, I kind of, like you mentioned, I recently just had a partnership with Realty World. And so our cards are now offered through their agent portal. And our cards are being used by agents across the country, across different states, coast to coast. And so I'm pumped about that. And one other industry other than real estate that's using my cards is solar. So we
Interesting.
have, yeah, solar agents. Solar has been growing a lot lately, and they have a lot of sales representatives going out, networking, and so I've seen demand go up in solar industry for digital cards.
Oh wow. So I know that solar is becoming like a big industry. I didn't pin that as like an exact industry that this card would penetrate. So one of the ways that I've been using it is, as you can tell, I've got, well, not just this podcast, I have the iCritic Live podcast, which, by the way, anyone watches channel, that one is on like Spotify and Apple and things like that if you want to hear the podcast about entertainment. But when I tell people, oh yeah, I do like a podcast, do we want to set up an interview? They're like, great, why don't you set up, do you have a business card? And I pull out my LynkMe card, they scan it, and then they have my contact information, and they have my website, and they actually have samples of my work that they can see, so they can see if this is a good fit for them or not. So the LynkMe card has been especially useful, and I don't have to buy these paper ones anymore because, I mean, now granted, people, I guess, could in theory just delete the information after they scanned it, but I found that when you handed like a paper card out, 9 out of 10 times it wound up in the trash. Like sometimes they don't even wait till you're out of sight before they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you a call. But the LynkMe card, like when they do it, they put it on their phone, and then it takes a little bit of effort to take the contact off the phone, so there's a much higher chance that someone's going to call back.
And the question that I wanted to answer was, how do we make it convenient for clients to save your contact? Because the reason why paper cards, I mean, I have a stack of business cards just on my desk, this thick, from agents giving me their cards. Now, I didn't have to, for me to save these cards, if I didn't have a LynkMe card, I would have to manually go through these one by one, look at it, and save them individually on my phone. That takes a lot of time. Now you can
Right.
see how it's not very efficient, and that's why people don't save cards anymore, right? And so I wanted to solve that problem. And yeah, like you mentioned, it goes straight into their phone, so it's just convenient.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, this is what it looks like. As you can see, you have to call me, email me, leave a review. That's probably why real estate agents like this card so much. Book a call and all the social media. And now, what's also really cool is that we really love the designs of these cards. I actually got this one, the one with like the little chips on it. Chips are totally useless, by the way, but they're cool looking. So is there like a story behind how this design came to be? Because this doesn't look like a business card. Like these are all like, I mean, they kind of do look like business cards, but then they have like electronics or anything. Like, what made you decide to settle on like computer chip looking designs for this card?
Great question. So because I majored in electrical engineering, I learned a lot about electronics and coding. I just felt like I needed to use what I learned in my 4-year degree to, make good use out of it. And without getting too much of it, I was in a very dark spot right after graduating because at the time I was going through some legality issues, and so I couldn't get a job right out of college, and it felt like I wasted 5 years of my time trying to grind school, graduating with a 3.9 degree as an electrical engineer, and so it just felt like my time was wasted. But that's when I learned about entrepreneurship, and apparently you can make your own job. And so I had the senior design project and I wanted to use my knowledge on electronics and the things I learned. And so that's why I make those cards out of PCB. They're called printed circuit boards, electronic circuit boards. And yeah, that's just something a little unique about them.
Okay. Now on that level, I do love the designs of the cards, and like I said, I wish I had mine right here. It was like I prepared for everything except to have the physical thing in my hand. But I am curious, even though I like these designs, are there plans to offer alternate designs as the LynkMe card becomes more common in industries? Like, you've already like been putting a pretty good dent in the real estate industry. Does that mean like LynkMe cards that look more like a real estate business card could be in the future? Or I guess the solar panel ones would work with this because, they use a lot of electronic parts. But I don't know, as you expand, do you see yourself expanding the designs of the card for special industries as well?
So yes and no. Yes, in a way that I'll be improving the designs of the digital card itself, the digital page. But I'm in a process where I'm pivoting into getting rid of the cards itself because I
Mm,
learned that most people nowadays just carry their phone. Not a lot of people carry their wallet, especially, the younger generation. And so, although the card looks cool, I think it'll be better to spend more effort in making the digital page better and use the
mm,
QR code because more people know how to use QR code rather than using a card NFC tap. And these cards
mm,
has a little special spot that needs to be tapped per phone. iPhones need to be tapped on the top of the phone, Androids on the back. And it's
mm.
just, I want to make it as easy as possible for everybody to use it. And that is using a QR code and a digital page. So the vision I have moving forward is actually getting rid of the cards.
Very, very interesting. So, like with LynkMe event, I mean, I don't want to get you to give away all your business secrets, but we're talking about like maybe like you subscribe to the app, and the app will always have the QR code that people can just scan, and then it would take you to give you everything you would need to know.
Essentially, yes, the digital page and the QR code.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Well, hopefully it doesn't come too soon. Like I really like these I really like these little design cards. And yeah, see, that's very simple. That's very intuitive, as they say. And of course, environment, like, yeah, that would be great for environment if not only do you get rid of people's need to get the paper card, but they don't need the card altogether. I guess I could see a future where like it's primarily an app, but if people want to buy the card as like an additional thing, I guess that's something that
Exactly. They're
could
not going to
be.
be going away completely. It'll be more like an add-on.
Yeah. So in the process of creating this card and this system, what are some of the things that you have learned? Because contrary to what some of the viewers probably think, we're not here to necessarily pimp the LynkMe card. We're here to talk about how Wu became an entrepreneur. So, what were some of the things you learned in the process of making this card?
Ooh, that's a question that has a long answer.
Well, well, you can. Well, I mean, you've got another 35 minutes. Depends
Let's
how
do
long
that.
that
Let's
answer
break
is.
it down into the beginning stage, the middle stage, and now and moving forward. Would that be fine?
Sure thing. That would be
Okay.
great.
So my goal is to potentially help anybody who's in a stage where I was 1 year ago. So I started this company 1 year ago, last year in April. And I want to say the biggest thing that I learned, and if I were to go back a year from now with the knowledge I have, the biggest thing that I would tell myself immediately would be this. Although I started as an electronics engineer, designer for these cards, that doesn't mean I need to be spending a majority of my time designing those cards. So what I mean by that is I spent 80-90% of my time in the beginning just trying to make the card better, designing more cards, the variations of the card. But as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, what I needed to do was actually put more gas on sales and focusing on selling the product because, sales is the oxygen of any business. And so that's something I didn't understand when I first got started. So I spent a lot of my time designing, studying, without selling. And so if I were to go back a year from a year ago, then I would get to this point a lot faster if I just started selling first. So that's the first thing. And the second thing was, like I mentioned, I had no idea how sales worked, how marketing worked. I wasn't an engineer, guys. I had no idea how any of that worked. And so I used the biggest resource that I had. Keep in mind, I was also broke. I think I had like $1,100 in my bank account at the time. And
Mm.
so I used the biggest resource that I had at the time, which was my time. And so that's why I went onto door knock on these real estate offices. And how I did that was I went onto Google, I looked up real estate office near me. I wrote down every office near me in order in like a circle. And I visited those offices. Some offices were closed, some of them were open, and I knocked on them and I just said, "Hey, I have this thing. Can I come during your team meeting and present this?" A lot of people said no, but some people said yes. And I did that for 6 months. And it eventually started working out. People liked the thing. People helped me improve it. And the second thing that I learned whilst talking about this story is that people that are more successful than I am in terms of business, like people that are like way above me in business, they wanted to help me. It was crazy. I didn't understand this at the time, but they saw this young dude just out of college, like grinding literally door knocking to make things work, and they wanted to help me. So what they did, Matt, if you're watching this, thank you. Dan, if you're watching this, appreciate you. John, if you're watching this, appreciate you. What they did was, I like your product, Woo. Let me connect you in my connections because I think that your product has real nice value. And so that's what they did. A lot of people that I work with, my clients, put me into their network. And so at that point, it just kind of grew exponentially because their friends told their friends. And so like it grew exponentially. That's how I was able to get those cards to across the country and have agents across the country using them. And so that's the second thing that I learned is that if you're willing to help yourself, people that are ahead of you will help you. That's the second thing I learned. And so I did that for a while, and I'll close with this. And the last thing that I learned is I wildly, how do I say this in the right way? I had no idea how much volume it needed to work anything. So what I mean by that was I tried every marketing method there is to make more money. I tried cold DMing. I tried cold emails where I sent 10,000 emails a day using like 30 different accounts. I tried social media ads. I tried YouTube ads. I tried door knocking, Facebook ads, and affiliates, and none of them worked. And I remember thinking like, dang, like why isn't anything working? But I wasn't working. I was making like, I want to say like 40 DMs a day, thinking that's enough. but just people that are making money doing the marketing method are just doing, I don't know if I'm allowed to, I'll keep it PG-13. They're just doing a lot more work than what I expected to be like a normal line. When I was sending 40 DMs, they're sending 300 DMs. And so that's the thing that I learned. That's the third thing. That is volume negates luck. I learned that phrase from Alex Hormozy. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I didn't understand how much work I needed to do to make anything work. But anything will work if I just do a lot of it. So that's the third thing I learned. And I honestly just did that for the past 12 months. And just for you, Matt, for the top numbers, last April, I think I made like $268 total. I have it written down, like 280 something, nothing. I didn't make anything for like the first 6 months. And last month, I had hit my low five-figure month, so I was super stoked at that. And the only reason why I was able to get to that was just because I did a ton more of what worked. So those are the three things. The first thing is, what did I say? The first thing is, what was the first thing? Second thing was people that are ahead of you will help you if you're willing to help yourself. Third thing is you just need to do a lot more than you think. And the first thing was, oh yeah, you need to spend like 80% of your time selling instead of like if you're a dentist, you still need to be selling 80% of the time, like in the beginning at least to get your business going, right? To
Yeah.
have customers in. So selling in the beginning, people will help you if you're willing to help yourself, and just doing a ton more of what works. And
Yeah.
if I knew those three things a year ago, then I think I would have gotten here like in half the time.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the time thing, because one of the big mistakes that people on my channel make is like, oh, well, I tried this for a few weeks and didn't really pan out the way I wanted. And it's like, well, if you're really passionate about this, you stick with it, and you can, when people look at, like, for example, like my eBay store where I'm making a few thousand a month on eBay, it's like, oh, I could do that. It's like, guys, the first I would say year, I was losing money at that store because I was buying more inventory for the store than what I was bringing in sales. But at some point, once that feedback comes up and you become the power seller and you're more likely to get pushed in the search, then it just started to work out a little bit more. But you need to, it's almost a grind early on, and what you're doing is you're putting a bet on yourself that what you are doing will succeed. And there's no guarantee that it ever will, but this is
Right.
like the most successful people put bets on themselves. Like, I mean, one of the stories that I love sharing, since I'm a movie person, is that M. Night Shyamalan, for whatever you think of the guy's career now, he refused to sell his script to The Sixth Sense unless he could direct it. Now, he turned down deals that would pay more for that script. He got paid a very little amount of money, but it's like, no, I feel that if I can make this and I can do it as good as I think I can do it, then the next time through will be better. And it clearly was for 7 or 8 years. And he made some bad choices. I guess there's another lesson in here. Don't make any bad decisions if you can help it.
Don't make any bad decisions. I really, really, really liked when you said, thing that makes entrepreneurship so hard is there's no guarantee. And I really think that's the number one reason why by no means, I'm not saying like I'm successful. I've achieved very little success compared to where I want to get to. But I think, in my opinion, I think the reason why entrepreneurship is so devastatingly hard is because you're putting all these time into your idea, but there's no guarantee. Like, you're asking for a guarantee to the world that it's not going to give you. And so, like, the time that you spend working on this, like the early mornings, the late nights, the pain of is it going to work? I'm going to do it anyways. It's that times like months or sometimes even years. For me, it took me 12 months until I started making like real money, to a point where I can support myself and do good for my friends and family, all this stuff. And so, the one thing that I want to say was, I think because there's no guarantee, like when it works out, the adrenaline that you get, the dopamine you get, it's just crazy.
Hmm.
The first month I was profitable, like it felt like the world turned upside down, but in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did have profitable months doing this, and I'm glad that you're thinking about the future, because that's the other thing. It's like you put all this time into selling this card, and now you're even talking about like, well, it's good, but I think now I'm going to take the concept in a different direction. I mean, like, I guess, another thing I kind of tell people is like, don't be afraid to change up the business model, because, I use Netflix as the punching bag on this one. I kind of worry about Netflix's future to a certain extent, because they used to be innovators. At first, it was the DVDs in the mail, and then they did the streaming. Then they started making their own stuff. But they've gotten to this point where it's like everyone now is doing what they're doing, and they're even doing things better by putting movies in theaters, and making deals with boutique labels to find other ways to sell their movies. And like Netflix is just going like, well, no, we're not going to do that. People like watching stuff on Netflix. And it's like, well, that shows a almost hesitancy. Like, okay, you found out what works, you made your fortune, but now you don't want to grow. You don't want to entertain other things. And so to hear that that you have some success with this car, and that you're still looking towards the future, shows outside the box thinking. So hopefully that will lead to more success in the long
Thank you.
run.
I hope so as well.
So we will end with this question that then I like to ask CEOs this question. Gene Siskel, film critic for Chicago Tribune, used to ask this at the end of every interview. What do you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? And this is open to any topic, right?
This is open to anything.
Okay. What do I know for sure? I'll stick with three things. I know these three things for sure. And first thing is, personally, I know I'm not going to quit. I know I'll eventually get to where I want to get to. If I don't quit, I'll win just by default. If you don't lose by default, you'll win. And so that's kind of the model I have. And I'm not going to quit until I get to my goal, which right now it's about $1 million a year. But I'm sure once I get to that, it'll just get bigger. It's just a placeholder. So I won't quit until I get there. I know that for sure. It's going to work out if I don't quit. Second thing is I'll always trust the market better than my intuition. And so what I mean by that is when I first got started, I didn't test anything. What I If I thought it was good, like my card, if my sales angle, my pitch was good to me, it was good and I went with it. But moving forward, I will trust the market's feedback more than my intuition. And so I will test all variables must be studied. I think was it B.F. Skinner that said that. It was, sorry if I quoted the wrong person, but I will study all variables and I'll trust the market feedback because they will never lie. They'll buy with others if they agree with me and if they think what I have is good. So um, I'll test everything. I won't quit until I win. And the last thing is entrepreneurship, at least for me, has been really lonely path. And I'm hoping some entrepreneurs listening to this could agree or would agree. Is that like I stopped fitting in with like my closest friends and the people that I used to hang out with because like I have work to do on a Saturday morning. I can't just go out Friday. And so, and I know that sounds like a surface answer, but like it really messes with you because like you're lonely on a Saturday night going to bed at 9 p.m. and you see all your friends out like at partying clubs, doing all that. And like you do that for months. And some months you feel good because you're making money, but you don't fit in with your old friends. And you don't fit in with the people that like your mentors, for example, that are making a lot more, way more successful, way in front of you in business because you don't have that kind of results yet. And so that stage, the in between stage, felt really lonely. Um, and I think that's at first I thought there was something wrong with it. I shouldn't feel that way. But I think the more I was exposed to feeling that way, the more normal it has become. And I think that's just part of the growth. And I know for sure that I just need to keep going. And it's just like feeling that lonely is just part of the process. Love my friends still, of course. Um, but I stopped like, there's definitely the element of feeling lonely as you're grinding in entrepreneurship. Yeah.
I guess I'll ask one more question on that topic. How bad can social media be for your mental health when you're trying to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a great question. In terms of getting customers, I think you could leverage it like crazy, um, on like your business page.
Right.
But in terms of like seeing your high school friends and college friends, having the life, having a great time on the weekends, it definitely messes with you. Not so much anymore because I have built my community and people that I see that are, like-minded and also in business, like entrepreneurs. But it's just, I think social media is fine and watching people like having fun or doing whatever is fine, but it's comparing yourself to that. I think that can become toxic. And
Mm,
so I try not to compare myself because, yeah, it'll
yeah. Well,
plus, I enjoy working. I think entrepreneurs is cool. Yeah.
yeah. Well, you have to enjoy working to a certain extent if you're gonna be an entrepreneur, because it's like being your own boss. It's like that always sounds. It sounds easier in theory than it actually ends up being. The reality of being an entrepreneur is like you're actually working harder than you would with a 9 to 5 job.
I think somebody said this quote. They said, when you become an entrepreneur, you stopped working an office job from 9 to 5 to work, you know, 9 to 9. Like you work more, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually, I think it pays off, and you do get the freedom. But I think what happens for a lot of entrepreneurs is they just fall in love with the work that they do, and so like the
Mm-hmm.
most successful entrepreneurs that I personally know will love what they do and they don't like really take break from that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, well, especially since I've gotten serious about the podcasting and it's starting to finally get some views and stuff. It's like, yeah, I love doing it, but there are like, some dinners that I'm late for when I do it. And while you were giving one of the questions, if you heard barking, that was my dog Lilo as she looked through the little door wanting to play, and she doesn't understand why Daddy's not going over to the door and picking her up. So, yep, there's just a harsh reality there that some people need to understand about.
But hey, I don't mean to end this on a more like a negative vibe, but
Oh
is it
no,
a negative thing? I I guess what I'm trying to say is because I felt lonely, it helped me work and grind more and longer. And so I think that if you can use that as an energy source, like use whatever you have as motivation. I
hmm
use being lonely as motivation to like work harder. And so is it negative? I don't know. I mean, I was able to produce more because of that. So
oh
I think it's good.
yep, glad to hear. And well, you did make a pretty cool product, and I hope I see bright things in LinkedMe's future. In fact, if you go public, I even see the ticker LYNK. I
And
don't think
like
I don't think I don't think anyone's going to use that, and if they are, LNKM. So yeah, I do the stock market a lot. So anyway, folks, we're going to end it there. Thank you, Wu, for coming on to the show. And we would like to know what you think about all of this, the card, what Wu has to say about entrepreneurship. So please do us that favor. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsible. Once again, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Thanks, everybody. Let's rock and roll. Have a good day.
Rock and roll.